You've probably noticed something strange about the world, even if you've never said it out loud. There are moments when a room changes the second someone walks in. Conversations that leave you feeling drained in a way no amount of sleep can fix. And sometimes, without understanding why, you watch events unfold exactly the way you secretly feared they would. It almost feels as if something invisible is moving before reality does. Most people brush these moments off. They call them coincidence, mood, imagination, because accepting what they might mean is uncomfortable. If what you feel in those moments is real, then it suggests something far deeper about how life actually works. It suggests that what happens around you may not begin outside of you at all. But here's the part almost no one tells you when they talk about energy or manifestation. When you truly start to see how energy moves before events take shape, something unexpected happens. You stop fitting into the same world the way you used to. Not because you chose to separate yourself, and not because you suddenly believe you're different from others. It happens automatically. The signal you carry begins to change. And people can feel that shift long before a single word leaves your mouth. Once you recognize how internal states quietly shape the events that follow, it becomes impossible to pretend you didn't notice it. The mechanism becomes visible. It's like suddenly seeing the frame around a painting that you once believed was the entire picture. The frame was always there, but now you can't unsee it. And when that happens, certain relationships start to feel strange. Environments that once felt normal begin to feel heavy. People may say you've changed, even though you feel more like yourself than ever before. But the truth is simpler. The signal you emit has shifted, and the world responds to that shift instantly. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Inner Code. In this video, we're not going to talk about surface-level techniques or motivational routines. What you're about to hear goes deeper than affirmations, deeper than visualization, deeper than the usual advice about positive thinking. Because the signal you emit into the world does not come from your words, your intentions, or even your conscious decisions. It comes from something far more powerful and far less visible. It comes from the internal state you've been carrying for so long that it no longer feels like a temporary condition. It feels like who you are. And that state has a name, a precise description for the invisible weight shaping your perception and quietly influencing your life. Think of it as a kind of mental architecture, a structure built slowly over years of experience, belief, and attention. A structure so familiar that you rarely notice it anymore. We could call it the perception prison. And the most unsettling part is this. Most people live inside it their entire lives without ever realizing the walls are there. 349. The defining feature of this prison is not an overt crisis, but a persistent low-grade internal friction. It is a quiet hum of resistance making every action feel slightly uphill. It's the exhaustion from having to constantly negotiate with yourself to do the things you consciously want, turning your own mind into a relentless, draining battlefield of intentions. You know the feeling of starting a day with a clear purpose only to find yourself hours later having been mysteriously pulled into old distracting habits as if on autopilot. This is the very experience of being an automaton in your own life story, watching your hands move and your mouth speak while the real you is a distant observer. Each day you spend a tremendous amount of your vital energy simply managing this internal conflict, pushing against the subtle tides of procrastination, doubt, and deeply rooted self-sabotage. This constant battle is why you feel so drained even on days when you haven't accomplished much. The most demanding work you do is the invisible work of fighting yourself. You find yourself arriving at the same emotional destinations over and over again. The same anxieties, frustrations, and limiting beliefs regardless of how your external circumstances might have changed. It feels like you are trapped in a recurring loop, a behavioral echo where you make a different choice only to somehow end up with the same precise internal result. After years of being caught in this repeating cycle, a quiet and heavy despair can begin to settle in. It is the secret belief that genuine change is not possible. You see others moving forward, building and creating with a sense of fluid ease while you feel like you are walking through deep mud, with every step requiring immense effort. This is the profound pain of the perception prison, the slow erosion of your hope, and the creeping suspicion that you might be fundamentally broken, stuck with an uncooperative mind. It is absolutely crucial that you understand this feeling is not a personal failure. Your experience is not evidence of a flaw in your character, your willpower, or intrinsic worth. You are not lazy, undisciplined, or lacking in ambition for being in this state. You are in fact experiencing the logical, predictable outcome of a system working as intended. This internal friction is just a symptom of an underlying mechanism that is operating perfectly, just not for the goals your conscious mind has set. It has an ancient agenda. The exhaustion you feel is real and perfectly justified. You have been trying to win a fight against an opponent whose nature you cannot see and whose rules you don't understand. So let this be a moment of deep validation. The immense struggle has been real. The invisible weight has been heavy. And you are not broken for feeling its effects. Your efforts have not been wasted. They have simply been directed at the wrong target. You have been trying to fight shadows on the wall instead of turning to face the light. This is a structural problem, not a personal one. It is the direct result of your mind's wiring, a deep and impersonal architecture that was installed long before you were aware. Recognizing this simple fact shifts the heavy burden of shame. It moves the problem from personal deficiency into the realm of a mechanical process that can finally be understood. You are not your patterns of self-sabotage. You are the one who has been suffering from their painful consequences while trying desperately to understand where they could possibly be coming from. The feeling of being trapped is an authentic signal, a compass needle pointing not to your weakness, but to the exact location of these invisible, unexamined perceptual walls you inherited. This is the moment to stop blaming the prisoner for the existence of the prison itself. The pain you feel is a legitimate response to a genuine form of unseen confinement. Now consider how this single subtle conflict scales across your entire life. It is not an isolated problem that appears only when you are trying to be deeply productive. This is the same mechanism that colors your perception in relationships, making you react to a partner's words based on a history of old wounds rather than their real intention. It is the unseen force that limits your financial reality by quietly filtering out opportunities that do not conform to your deep unconscious beliefs about abundance, worthiness, and your own value. Think of the precious energy this internal friction consumes every single day. It's a silent tax on your vitality, siphoning off the power you need to create, connect, and grow. This is the hidden reason you have brilliant ideas that never seem to leave the safety of your mind. Your creative energy is redirected to manage the automated patterns of doubt. This filter dictates the emotional weather of your inner world, predisposing you to anxiety or resignation, not because of what is happening now, but because of its old story. It determines what you even notice in the world around you. Opportunities, solutions, and connections may be present, but this filter can render them completely invisible to your awareness. The cost is not just in the things you do that you wish you hadn't. The true heartbreaking cost is in the life you are not living, the person you aren't becoming. It is the love you do not feel, the risks you do not take, the books you don't write, and the peace you don't experience because of this invisible operating system. Every moment you spend lost in thought, reliving a past regret, or pre-living a future fear, is a moment where your presence and agency have been quietly hijacked by the machine. The ultimate price of this unconscious filtering is your connection to the present moment. It keeps you a perpetual resident of your mind, not an inhabitant of your actual life. This pattern is far more pervasive than you ever imagined. It is the silent gravitational center around which your entire subjective experience of reality has been unknowingly organized for decades. It is the source code for the simulation you have mistaken for the world, and you have been trying to change the simulation's output without ever once looking at the code. Here we arrive at the critical break in our understanding. The first real turn. The problem is not what you have been thinking. It is the very way that you think. You have been treating the symptoms of this condition, the procrastination, the anxiety, and the self-criticism as if they were the disease itself, which is why no solution ever sticks. Every time you try to use willpower to force a new habit or fight a negative thought, you are engaging with the filter on its own terms, which only reinforces its power. You are using the part of your mind that created the prison to try and break out of the prison. This is the ultimate paradox. Why more effort often feels worse. The walls of your perception prison are not fortified by your weaknesses, but by the very energy of your constant struggle against them. Your fight gives the walls their strength. This means that the path to real freedom does not involve more force, more discipline, or a more aggressive internal battle. In fact, it requires the opposite of that approach. It demands that you stop trying to fix the content of your thoughts and instead become intensely curious about the container that holds them, the very structure of your perception. The real target for change is not any single belief or behavior. It is the automated background process of filtering itself, the mechanism that generates these experiences in the first place. This is a fundamental shift in perspective. It moves your focus from the endless, exhausting work of managing your internal state to the simple, quiet act of just observing it. The pain you feel is not a life sentence. It is an invitation to finally ask a much deeper and more powerful question than how do I fix myself and my problems. Instead, the truly essential question becomes something else entirely. Why is your mind, and indeed the human mind itself, built with this strange and painful architecture in the first place? This architecture was not designed to make you happy or fulfilled. Its single overriding directive encoded over millennia of evolution is brutally and beautifully simple. Sheer raw survival. Your brain is not a precision instrument for perceiving objective reality. It is a prediction and efficiency engine built to keep your pattern of biology going for another single day. To achieve this, it had to make a fundamental trade-off. It sacrificed comprehensive accuracy for life-saving speed, choosing the quick interpretation of reality over the completely true one. Imagine your distant ancestors on an open plain. The rustle in the tall grass could be a dangerous predator, or it could just be the wind. There is no time for analysis. The ancestor who assumed it was a predator and ran away survived, even if they were wrong 90*9. The one who waited for more data was eventually removed. You are the direct descendant of the anxious and the quick to judge. Your nervous system is fine-tuned to detect threat patterns and to jump to immediate, often negative conclusions. This is the evolutionary root of your perceptual filter. It is a threat detection system that defaults to seeing danger and limitation first, because that was once the safest operating model. It learned to construct a simplified map of the world based on past experiences. A map that highlighted potential dangers while ignoring vast amounts of neutral or positive background information. This process is not a flaw in your psychology. It is the legacy of a biological strategy that was spectacularly successful at keeping your lineage from ending prematurely in a dangerous world. The deep problem is that you are now running this ancient survival software in the entirely different, complex, and abstract world of modern human society. A world it was not built for. The modern world requires nuance and careful consideration. But your hardware defaults to the black and white threat-based logic of a much more perilous and immediate time. In our history, this system's other primary goal is to conserve energy. Your brain, despite being a fraction of your body weight, consumes an enormous portion of your daily caloric intake. It's expensive. Every conscious, deliberate thought you have requires a significant metabolic cost. To manage this finite budget, your brain aggressively automates every single process it possibly can, building habits. This drive for efficiency creates two fundamentally different modes of thinking. One is slow, logical, and extremely effortful. The other is fast, intuitive, and almost entirely automatic. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman refers to these as System 2 and System 1. The vast majority of your life, from emotional reactions to daily decisions, is run by the fast system. Think of it like this. Your mind is an office with one meticulous, hard-working analyst and an army of interns who run on old memos. To save energy, the interns handle everything. The analyst is only called in for truly novel or complex problems. But the interns are so fast at providing answers that the analyst rarely gets consulted even when old memos are wrong. This is precisely why you find yourself repeating patterns without understanding why. The automatic energy-saving system is simply executing a program it has run successfully thousands of times before. It is a machine that has been built for efficiency, not for your personal evolution. It prefers the certainty of a familiar negative outcome over the uncertainty of trying something new. This is not a sign of your weakness or your lack of discipline. It is the core operating principle of a biological system trying to get you through the day using minimal energy. The constant internal friction you feel is the tension between your conscious desire for growth and your brain's deep primal need for the energy, saving predictability of established patterns. Your survival hardware. This ancient operating system did not develop in a vacuum. From the moment you were born, it began receiving its first lines of code from your world. This is the process of social conditioning. Your family, your education, and your culture provided the initial software that taught this ancient hardware how to navigate your specific social environment. They gave you your first map of reality. This map defined what was good and bad, what was possible and impossible, what was safe to feel, and what had to be suppressed. These early inputs created the foundational beliefs that now operate as unquestioned assumptions deep within your psyche. The invisible rules governing your automated reactions to life, love, and work. A stable sense of self, what we often call the ego, was formed from these rules. It is a necessary fiction, a coherent character you learn to play to gain safety. This self is a bundle of survival strategies that worked in your childhood. It is a collection of beliefs, memories, and behaviors that provided a predictable way of engaging your world. But this identity, which feels so solid and so fundamentally you, is actually a product of the filter. It is a story constructed from a limited set of socially approved data points. The automated system in your mind now works tirelessly to protect this constructed identity. Because in its ancient logic, maintaining a stable self is the key to social survival. This is why you unconsciously resist information that contradicts your core beliefs about yourself and the world. It feels like a genuine threat to your very existence and your story. The voice of the inner critic, for instance, is often just an internalized parental or cultural voice, a preemptive strike to keep you from taking risks that might lead to rejection. This is the invisible thread connecting the savannah to your current anxieties. The same mechanism that scanned for predators now scans for social threats using software written by your personal history. Your perception prison is the result of this convergence. Ancient survival-focused hardware running outdated socially installed software. All of it automated to save energy and maintain a stable identity construct. It is a powerful and impersonal system. It is not against you. It is simply for a version of you that is no longer relevant. A version defined by past dangers. This entire mechanism operates in the background, shaping your experience so seamlessly that you mistake its output for the world itself. Like a fish that has no concept of water, you believe you are reacting to events, but you are almost always reacting to your filter's interpretation of those events. A story generated by an ancient automated and unconscious machine. This is why willpower alone so often fails. When you try to force a change, you are using the conscious mind to fight a system that is faster and more deeply embedded. You are challenging the very foundation of what your brain believes is necessary for your survival. It will always default back to the path of least resistance, the path it knows. So the feeling of being an automaton is not an illusion. A significant part of you is in fact an automaton, a beautifully designed legacy system now causing profound collateral damage. Understanding this origin story is the first step in dismantling the shame and self-blame you have carried. Your struggle is not a character flaw. It is a design feature misapplied. The system is not broken. It is working perfectly according to its original specifications. The problem is that those specifications are now limiting your potential and creating the pain you feel. But this raises a much deeper and more unsettling question. If this filtering process is so automatic and deeply rooted, then what is it actively doing to your perception right now? The true cost is not in the energy it consumes, but in the reality it selectively omits. This filter is not just adding a layer of interpretation. It is actively deleting information. It creates a personalized reality tunnel for you by deciding moment by moment what sensory data and what possibilities are allowed to reach your conscious awareness and what is simply discarded. The machine's criteria for this selection process are not your conscious goals for growth, connection, or creativity. Its criteria are survival, energy conservation, and confirming its existing map. This means that opportunities, solutions, and entire spectrums of experience may exist all around you, but they are rendered functionally invisible because the filter has already decided they're not relevant. The walls of your prism, then, are not just made of the things you see and interpret negatively. They are primarily built from the vast landscapes of reality you are never permitted to see. This ancient machine is not just a passive lens. It is an active and relentless curator, the silent gatekeeper of your perceived reality, editing the world before you ever experience it. The real mystery is no longer why the prison exists. The urgent mystery is to understand the precise mechanism this gatekeeper uses to make those invisible authoritative decisions on your behalf. So, how does this ancient machine actively construct your reality in the here and now? It operates through a simple, elegant, and completely relentless self-reinforcing loop running every waking moment. The primary gear in this mechanism is your attention. You think of it as a tool for focus, but it is actually the energy that animates your entire perceived personal world. Where you place your attention is not a neutral act of observation. It is a creative act of selection, a vote for what elements of reality become truly significant for you. This focused attention tells your brain which neural circuits to strengthen. Every time you focus on a worry or a limitation, you are physically reinforcing the pathway for that thought. This is the principle of neuroplasticity in action. Your brain is not fixed. It is constantly being sculpted by the chisel of your repetitive focus, hardening pathways into deep grooves. The more a neural pathway is used, the more efficient it becomes. This is how a single thought over time transforms into an automatic belief, a default setting for your perception. Once a belief is established, the filter activates its most powerful function, confirmation bias. It begins to actively scan your environment for evidence that proves your existing map is correct. Your mind becomes a biased detective, ignoring all data that contradicts your core beliefs and highlighting every tiny detail that confirms them, presenting it as absolute objective proof of reality. If you believe people are untrustworthy, you will selectively notice every slight and every inconsistency while remaining completely blind to the countless demonstrations of loyalty and kindness that surround you. This creates a perfect closed feedback loop. Your beliefs direct your attention. Your attention filters your perception. And your perception provides evidence that strengthens your original limiting belief. You are not just seeing the world through a filter. You are actively participating in a process that makes the filter thicker and less permeable with every single passing day. This is why change feels so impossible. You are trapped in a feedback loop where the conclusion, your belief, is also the premise that starts the entire perceptual process over again. The system is designed for self-preservation. It seeks stability above all else. And the most stable reality it knows is the one that has been built from your familiar past. It does not distinguish between a belief that is true and a belief that is merely familiar. Familiarity is its primary signal for safety. Its North Star for all navigation. So your reality becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, not because of some mystical force, but because of a predictable, observable, and deeply neurological process that is running you unconsciously every moment. This entire mechanism is automated for energy conservation. It runs silently, efficiently, and without any need for your conscious permission. It is the ghost in your machine, the hidden director. Imagine a person with a core unexamined belief that their successes are just accidents. This belief is the filter's foundational operating code. They are offered a major promotion at work. This is an external event, neutral data. But the filter immediately begins its interpretation, its storytelling, its careful editing process. Instead of excitement, the first emotional response is a wave of intense anxiety. The mind is not seeing an opportunity. It is seeing a stage for spectacular, inevitable public failure. Their selective attention bypasses all the evidence of their competence, such as years of good work and positive feedback. Instead, it magnifies every mistake they have ever made, every self-doubt. These memories are now presented as the primary data set, the real truth of who they are. The promotion is framed as a terrible, dangerous error made by their superiors. In conversations about the new role, confirmation bias is working overtime. They interpret a manager's constructive advice as a hidden warning that they are already falling short of all expectations. They perceive a colleague's neutral question about their new responsibilities as a subtle challenge to their authority, a sign that no one truly believes they can handle this new role. Their behavior begins to shift based on this filtered reality. They become hesitant in meetings. They overanalyze small decisions, and they avoid taking necessary risks for fear of being exposed. This hesitant behavior in turn causes their team to lose confidence. They begin to receive the very critical feedback that their filter had originally predicted and was looking for. Eventually, they might even step down from the role or make a critical error under the weight of the pressure they have generated, feeling a strange and confusing sense of relief. The filter has successfully resolved the cognitive dissonance. The external reality now perfectly matches the internal belief. I knew I wasn't capable. The loop has been closed successfully. This person does not see this as self-sabotage. From inside the perception prison, this entire sequence of events feels like a logical, unavoidable confirmation of a pre-existing truth about themselves. The filter did its job perfectly. It protected the stability of the known self, the familiar identity of someone who isn't really capable from the threatening new data of success. It manufactured a reality that was consistent with its map, sacrificing the opportunity for growth on the altar of predictability. This is the mechanism in its purest, most destructive form. The tragedy is that this entire internal drama was generated by a single unexamined assumption that was likely installed decades ago and has been running on autopilot ever since then. The prison is not the external events themselves. The prison is the automatic internal process of interpretation that turns a golden opportunity into an iron cage of profound personal fear. Now turn this lens inward away from that example and onto your own life. This is not a hypothetical process. This very mechanism is operating in you right at this moment. Think of a core belief you hold about yourself. Perhaps it's that you are not creative, that you are not a leader, or that you are fundamentally unlovable. Now recall the last week of your life. Can you see how your attention was unconsciously drawn to tiny pieces of evidence that seemed to validate this specific belief? Can you feel how your mind might have quietly dismissed or ignored contradictory evidence? The moments that showed you were creative, that you did lead, that. This is not simply a memory exercise. It is an invitation to watch the living process through which your reality is being constructed right now. Consider a recurring frustration in your life, a pattern that keeps appearing in your relationships or in your work. Ask yourself honestly, have you been seeing the situation itself, or have you only been seeing the belief you carry about it? Most of the time we mistake the map for the territory. We argue with the images on the screen while remaining completely unaware of the projector quietly running in the background. Your emotional reactions are not random. They are the direct output of this invisible filtering process. Each reaction carries the emotional tone of the story your mind is currently telling about what is happening. That sudden flash of irritation when someone close to you says a single sentence, or that immediate wave of discouragement when you face a challenge, these are not pure responses to the event itself. They are automated interpretations generated by the filter of your past experiences. The story forms instantly. A meaning is assigned before you even notice it happening. The loop continues to run constantly. In fact, the feeling of being yourself is often nothing more than the sensation of this feedback loop operating smoothly in the background. It creates a personal narrative that feels coherent, predictable, and very convincing. But it is also deeply limited. Without realizing it, you have been reinforcing the walls of your own prison piece by piece through every unexamined assumption, every quick judgment, and every fear you allowed to pass unquestioned. The sense of being an automaton in your own life begins to make sense here. Because in many ways you have been acting as the vessel for a self-reinforcing program whose primary goal is simply to prove itself right. Realizing this can feel unsettling. It means your perception of the world is not a neutral window, but an active vote for a specific version of reality. Your struggle has not only been against external circumstances. It has been an internal struggle against a script that you unknowingly help rewrite every moment. This is the real structure of your confinement. Not iron bars, not physical limitations, but invisible neural pathways that grow stronger every time your attention travels along them. Yet the deepest cost of this mechanism is not the pain it produces. The true cost is the reality it quietly prevents. It is the potential life that never unfolds. Every time your filter rejects a possibility because it does not match its existing map, a door to another future closes silently. Think about the people you never approached because the filter judged them too quickly. The ideas you dismissed before giving them a chance. the paths you labeled as too risky even to explore. This is how the future is slowly edited away without your awareness. A system designed for stability begins to remove everything unfamiliar. The tragedy is that the energy you spend navigating these internal conflicts is the same energy that could have been used to create, explore, and experience life more fully. Instead, it is drained by constant internal resistance. You live with a subtle but continuous cognitive tax. Just enough energy remains to maintain your current life, but rarely enough to transform it. 32:41. This is why you feel a sense of disconnection even when surrounded by others. You are trapped in a monologue, mistaking it for a dialogue with the world outside of yourself. The mechanism costs you your spontaneity, your ability to respond to life with fresh eyes. It turns the vibrant, unpredictable present moment into a predictable echo of your past. You are not truly present. You are in a constant state of mental time travel, referencing old files to predict future threats, completely missing the only reality that ever exists. The ultimate price is the slow, imperceptible shrinking of your world. The filter's walls close in so gradually that you do not notice your universe getting smaller. Each year, you begin to mistake the familiar dimensions of your cage for the boundaries of the entire world, believing your limitations are not just your own, but fundamental laws of existence. The cost is the person you were meant to become, the one who exists just outside the perimeter of your filter's current comfortable and soul-crushing jurisdiction. It is a life unlived. This is not a future cost. This is a debt being acred right now in this moment by the silent automatic decisions your filter is making on your behalf. And the most chilling part of this entire process is that it is happening with your full, albeit unconscious consent. Your attention is the fuel that powers the entire machine. And so you see this relentless automated machine, the filter, the loop, the ghost that has been directing your life from just behind the curtain without your awareness. For your entire life, you have been fused with its operations, believing that its voice was your voice, that its fears were your own fundamental nature and final truth. Every attempt to change has been one part of the machine fighting another part. A civil war inside a closed system that only ever strengthens the very battlefield itself. But in this detailed mapping of the prison, an unavoidable question begins to surface. A question so simple it has been completely overlooked until this very specific moment. If you are the program, if you are the thought, if you are the emotional reaction, then who exactly is the one that is noticing all of this activity? Who is this silent witness that has been present for every thought, every feeling, every automated pattern, watching the internal movie without ever being a character part of it? This is the turn. The moment you stop looking at the content of your mind and start to recognize the presence of the awareness that is holding it. The mechanism you have been studying is not you. It is something that is happening within you. A storm of activity appearing in a vast, profound, and silent space. You are not the intricate machinery of the filter. You are the quiet, empty room in which all of that noisy machinery has been allowed to run on its own. This is the great unvelcroing, the subtle but seismic separation of your identity from the lifelong activity of your mind, which is the source of all your suffering. The prisoner suddenly realizes they are not made of the same substance as the prison walls. A space between them has just appeared for the very first time. It happens in the most ordinary of moments. You are stuck in traffic, and the familiar hot wave of impatient anger begins its predictable climb up your chest. The usual script begins to play. The internal monologue of blame, the rehearsed frustrations, the physical tension that clenches your jaw and grips the steering wheel. But this time, something is different. Without any effort or intention, a part of you simply stands back and watches the whole performance with a quiet, neutral curiosity. You are not trying to stop the anger or change it. You are simply for the very first time aware that it is happening inside of you. You notice the thought this is unbearable, and you see it for what it is. Just a thought, a brief electrical weather pattern passing through a much wider space. In that instant of pure seeing, the anger is still there, but its gravitational pull on your identity vanishes. It is no longer you. It isn't it you can observe. This is the most profound and intimate discovery available to a human being. The quiet revelation that has been waiting for you in the background of your entire life. The truth that is almost never said out loud is this. You are not the voice in your head. You are the one who is hearing the voice with total neutrality. You are not the anxiety, the sadness, or the fear. You are the silent, changeless awareness in which those feelings are allowed to arise, crest, and then pass away. This separation is not an intellectual concept. It is a lived, felt experience of inner space. The first breath of genuine freedom you have ever truly taken in your life. For your entire life, you have been confusing the weather with the sky. Now you recognize yourself as the sky, which is never harmed or stained by any storm. This intimate personal shift is not some random psychological quirk. It mirrors one of the most profound principles discovered at the very edge of our scientific understanding of reality. At the subatomic level in the world of quantum physics, reality is fundamentally probabilistic. Particles do not exist in a definite state until they are measured or observed. Before observation, an electron is not a point in space. It is a wave of potential, a cloud of possibilities existing simultaneously. Its nature is indeterminate, fluid, and open. The moment an observer measures it, this wave of potential collapses into a single definite reality. The act of looking changes the system from potential to actual particle. This is the observer effect, not as a tool for manifesting cars, but as a conceptual model for the nature and function of your own consciousness and its creative power. Your unobserved mental and emotional patterns operate like that wave of potential, but a wave that has collapsed into the same particle, the same reality every single time. Left unobserved, your automatic thoughts have absolute power. They are not possibilities. They are presented to you as deterministic facts, as the only reality that could ever exist. They run on a track, predictable and solid. They are your reality because they have never been subjected to the transformative power of a truly neutral and non-judgmental observation. When you bring conscious awareness, your observation to a thought or a feeling, you are introducing a new energy into that closed deterministic system for the very first time. The thought no longer collapses into an absolute truth. Its nature fundamentally changes. It becomes what it always was, just one possibility floating in a field of pure awareness. The automatic program, the moment it is seen clearly, is revealed not as a solid command, but as a mere suggestion, a relic of the past you can now choose. Observation does not destroy the pattern. It changes its state from a dictator of your reality to a simple piece of data that you can now choose to act on. This seeing changes everything not by adding anything new to you, but by revealing the dimension of depth that was already there completely unnoticed until this very point. The automated mechanism does not just vanish. The inner critic might still speak and old anxieties might still visit, but their absolute authority has been permanently broken by you. They no longer arrive as you. They arrive as visitors in your house. Visitors you are not obligated to serve or even believe for a single moment longer. You stop being the reactive character who is helplessly jerked around by the plot of your own thinking. You become the space in which the story simply unfolds. This creates a gap, a sacred pause between the world's stimulus and your response. Before this space was non-existent, a direct fusion of trigger and automatic reaction. Now in that space a new capacity is born, the power of choice. You are no longer compelled to follow the script. You can read the line with a different intonation. You can feel the pull of an old habit, and instead of being dragged by it, you can simply observe the sensation of the pull without needing to act on it. This is not about willpower or fighting your urges. It is the effortless power that comes from disidentification, from the simple recognition that you are not the urge itself. The energy that was once consumed by internal conflict, by fighting yourself, by resisting your reality, is now liberated. It becomes available for creation, for presence, for your life. The walls of the prison do not come crashing down. Instead, you realize they are made of smoke, of old energy patterns you no longer need to solidify with your belief. You are no longer a victim of your own mind. You have shifted your identity to the one thing in you that the mind cannot touch, your own spacious awareness. Your circumstances may not change immediately, but your relationship to them is revolutionized. The source of suffering was never the circumstances, but your reactive interpretation of it. You begin to live from a place of quiet centeredness, a stillness that is not disturbed by the chaos of the mind or the turbulence of the external world. The director's chair, which you believed was empty, was never empty. You, the silent awareness, have been sitting in it the entire time just watching the movie. This seeing is not a one-time event. It is the beginning of a new mode of being. It is a shift from inhabiting a reality to consciously participating in it. The old automated self is still there like a phantom limb, but you are no longer convinced that you are only the phantom. You know yourself as something more. This realization is irreversible. Once you have genuinely tasted the space between you and your thoughts, you can never fully go back to the prison of unconsciousness again. You might forget for minutes, for hours, even for days. The old habit of identification is strong, but the memory of freedom now exists as a permanent anchor for you. You can no longer fully believe the stories of your own limitation because you have directly experienced the part of you that is by its very nature completely limitless. This is the key, the entire key. Not a strategy, not a technique, but a fundamental shift in where you locate the sense of I inside of yourself. This is the moment everything that came before becomes clear and everything that comes after becomes possible. You are no longer managing the problem. You are observing it, and you now have the profound and unsettling question of what to do with this newfound space, this quiet power that observation has just handed directly back to you. The way out is not to tear down the walls, but to stop projecting them. Your resistance is the very energy that gives the filter its solidity and its real power. To fight a thought is to declare it real and powerful. To argue with a feeling is to give it authority. This is the paradoxical trap you've been in for years. The principle of exit is one of radical non-opposition. You do not fix the filter. You stop investing your awareness in its story, and it begins to dissolve on its own. You withdraw your belief from the mechanism, and the automated ghost in the machine slowly starves, deprived of the only food source that ever sustained it, your attention. The first practice is a precise shift in your internal language, a tool called disidentification. It is the art of separating yourself from your mind's nonstop daily activity. You have been programmed to say, I am anxious or I am a failure. This language creates a total fusion of identity with a temporary internal state or passing thought. Disidentification introduces a revolutionary syntax. You practice reframing the experience as I am noticing a feeling of anxiety arising. It creates the crucial space needed for choice. Or instead of I am a failure, you state the observable fact. I am having the thought that I am a failure. You are not the thought. You are its witness. Imagine you receive an email with unexpected and harsh criticism about your work. The old programming immediately triggers the thought, I am incompetent. This feels like a final verdict. The identity of incompetent then colors all subsequent actions. You might become defensive or withdraw completely, all in an attempt to protect this suddenly fragile sense of self. Now apply the new syntax. You still feel the sting of the words, but you say internally, I am aware of the thought that I am incompetent. The thought is still there, but now it is an object held in your awareness, not the entirety of it. You can observe it without being consumed by its powerful and destructive gravitational field. The space this creates allows for a different response. You can analyze the criticism, extract what is useful, and discard what is not, all without collapsing your core identity. This simple change is not a trick or a denial of your authentic feelings. It is a more accurate description of what is actually happening in your inner world. This practice systematically dismantles the ego's habit of fusing with every passing thought. It is a training in becoming the sky, not the fleeting weather patterns passing inside it. You are not denying the storm. You are simply remembering that you are the vast open space in which the storm is allowed to occur without causing any permanent damage. The second practice deals with the creative energy of your focus. It is called intentional attention, the conscious cultivation of the reality you actually want to inhabit and build. Your filter has been trained to focus on problems, on threats, on what you lack. It magnifies what is wrong in a desperate attempt to fix it, which backfires. This strategy, however, is a trap. By focusing your energy on what you want to remove, you inadvertently keep it alive, watering the weeds instead of the delicate flowers. Intentional attention inverts this logic. You withdraw focus from the reality you do not want and deliberately place it upon the reality you wish to grow and experience. A person who wants to be more confident has been taught to fight their insecurity. They spend all their time analyzing their flaws, endlessly trying to fix their own self. This intense focus on insecurity only deepens the neural pathways of self-doubt. They become an expert in their own weaknesses, which only magnifies their lack of personal confidence. Applying intentional attention, they would ask, what does confidence feel like? Or, what is one small action I could take that reflects confidence right at this moment? Now they would then direct their full attention to seeking out and celebrating tiny moments of courage or clarity, however small. They focus on evidence of what they actually want. The old pattern of insecurity does not need to be fought. It simply begins to atrophy from lack of use like an unwalked path in a very dense forest. This is not about ignoring problems. It is a strategic redirection of the neuroplasticity engine. You choose which neural circuits you are going to actively build and strengthen. You are not trying to create a feeling of confidence from nothing. You are simply choosing to water a different seed that was already there, patiently waiting for the light. This is the practical application of understanding that your focus is a creative force. You are consciously selecting ingredients for the reality your brain will then construct for you. The third practice is a form of deep inquiry that targets the filter's foundation. It is the discipline of questioning the filter, of treating beliefs as objects you can examine. Your deepest beliefs about life, about yourself, and about others operate as invisible axioms. They feel like fundamental laws, not subjective opinions you learned from your personal past. This practice invites you to take one of these core beliefs and hold it up to the light of a few simple penetrating questions without needing a definitive answer. You take a foundational belief, such as I must have everyone's approval to feel safe, and you ask with genuine curiosity, is this thought absolutely true in every situation? Can you really know with 100% certainty that your safety depends entirely on the approval of every single person you might ever meet in your entire life? Then you ask, what is the emotional and behavioral reaction when I believe this thought to be true? You trace its effect through your entire personal system of being. You notice the anxiety it creates, the people-pleasing it generates, the way it makes you shrink and withhold your authentic self. You just watch the painful consequences. Then you imagine for a moment, who would I be? How would I act without this specific thought? You feel into the possibility of a reality without that rule. The gentle, repeated questioning begins to create hairline fractures in the certainty of the belief. It reveals its nature as a construct, not an unchangeable truth of your life. This process of inquiry does not aim to replace a negative belief with a positive one. That would just be another form of manipulation, another trap for your ego. The belief may not disappear, but it loses its solidity and its unquestioned authority. It becomes transparent, something you can now just see right through without any judgment. You are not seeking new answers. You are using questions to dissolve the ground on which the limiting belief stood, revealing the open space that was always underneath it. A designer is facing a critical client presentation. In the past, this situation would trigger a cascade of automated patterns, a predictable internal storm that sabotaged their performance. The old script begins. They will think my ideas are not good enough. This thought fuses with their identity, creating a heavy feeling of dread and imposter syndrome. But now they have new tools. They catch the thought and apply. Deification. I am having the thought that my ideas are not good enough. A space appears. Then they apply intentional attention. They redirect their focus from the fear of judgment to their genuine passion for solving the client's problem, which feels much better. Finally, they use questioning the filter. Is it true they will hate it? This reveals the thought as a catastrophic story, not a fact. Their nervousness now has room to breathe. As you begin to practice this, the first sign of change will not be a loud victory, but a quiet space, a pause appearing between a trigger and your usual reaction. Where there was once an immediate flash of anger or a plunge into despair, there will now be a moment of seeing, a brief window to choose your response. You will start to feel a sense of lightness, a subtle release of the chronic tension that came from constantly fighting and managing your own mind. Every single day, the voice of your inner critic will not fall silent overnight, but you will notice its volume is lower. Its pronouncements will sound less like facts and more like opinions. Solutions to problems you have been stuck on for years may suddenly appear not because you thought harder, but because the filter that hid them is dissolving. You will find yourself more present in your conversations, listening to what people are actually saying rather than to your mind's running commentary about their words and their intentions. These are not promises of a life without problems. They are the first signs you are shifting from a character in the story to the quiet awareness watching it. The journey began with a question, a quiet paradox that has followed you all your life. Why did your efforts to change so often lead you back to the same place? That contradiction was the first thread you pulled, leading you down through the layers of your own internal architecture, past the pain, and into the very root of the mechanism. You saw that the energy of your attention was being automatically hijacked by an ancient survival program, a filter that was designed to keep your story consistent and completely predictable. The conflict you felt was your conscious desire for a new future, arguing with a machine that only knew how to endlessly recreate a version of your familiar limiting past. That battle was unwinnable by design. You were trying to use one part of the machine to defeat another, a closed loop of effort that only generated exhaustion and despair. But by shifting your identity from the thoughts themselves to the silent observer of the thoughts, you stepped outside of that entire conflict. You are no longer on the battlefield. You are not the part of you that wants to change, nor are you the part that resists it. You are the quiet, spacious awareness that holds both in view. The original question now dissolves in this new light. The paradox no longer needs a solution. It has become irrelevant to who you now know yourself to be. The feeling of being stuck was never a signal of your failure. It was the friction of a limited identity rubbing against the vastness of your own true, unchanging nature. You have not learned a new strategy for living. You have undergone a change in your state of being, an irreversible recognition of what has always been present inside you. This shift confers a new identity. You are no longer just a person having an experience. You are the conscious space in which that experience is allowed to happen. You are no longer the character in the story completely lost in the drama of the plot. You have become the awareness that is reading the page without any judgment. This means you have moved from being a passive inhabitant of a predetermined reality to being an active conscious participant in the continuous unfolding of your own perception. The world no longer happens to you. It is a field of information and energy that appears within you which you now have the agency to interpret with conscious intent. You are no longer a victim of your own mind's automatic programming. You are the observer who can see the program running without having to obey its outdated commands. This is the end of the war with yourself. You are not here to fix your thoughts or perfect your feelings, but to provide a loving space for them to exist. This understanding is not an escape from life. It is the beginning of your full arrival into it, free from the distorting lens of the unexamined inherited filter. You are no longer defined by the contents of your mind, your history, your beliefs, your fears. You know yourself as the context in which all that content appears. This is not a temporary state of peace you must struggle to maintain. It is the discovery of the peace that was already there, buried beneath the noise. You have located the single silent center of your being that is never touched by the chaos of the world or the turbulence of your own conditioned internal reactions. From this center, you do not react to life anymore. You learn to respond to it with a clarity and wisdom that was previously unavailable, hidden by the filter. You have awakened from the dream of being the automaton and have remembered yourself as the dreamer, the silent consciousness that is imagining the entire show without effort. This is not a small personal improvement. This shift in identity changes the fundamental nature of the reality you experience from the ground up on every single level. Your existence is no longer a deterministic line, a predictable story written by your past. It has become a probabilistic field, a quantum state of infinite open potential. Problems that once seemed like solid, immovable walls are now revealed to be what they always were. Simply dense patterns of energy and thought held in place by belief. From the space of awareness, you do not attack these patterns. You observe them with neutrality, and in that observation, their rigid structure begins to lose its power. Your relationships are transformed. You stop interacting with your mental projection of a person and begin to meet the actual human being who is standing right before you. Your creativity is unleashed. The energy that was once consumed by internal conflict is now freed for creation, for innovation, for bringing new forms into the entire world. Your very experience of time itself begins to change. You are no longer a prisoner of past regrets or future anxieties because you have found your home in now. This is not just about feeling better. It is about becoming a different kind of human being, one who contributes presence and clarity to the world instead of conditioned reactivity. Imagine a world where conversations are held from this space, where decisions are made from this clarity, where conflicts are met with this profound understanding of internal mechanics. One person who awakens to this becomes a point of stillness in their world. Many people awakening to this begins to change the collective field of human consciousness itself. Your internal liberation is not an isolated event. It is a quiet but powerful contribution to the evolution of awareness on this planet. A ripple in a vast ocean. You are not just healing your own life. You are helping to dismantle the collective perception prison that has kept so many people trapped in cycles of unconscious suffering. This journey has brought you to the threshold of a new way of being, one that is defined not by doing more, but by being present. The director's chair was never empty. It was simply waiting for you to recognize that you, the silent awareness, were sitting in it the entire time. The final freedom is not changing what you see, but realizing you are the seeing itself. What we have just moved through together was not merely a lecture. It was an invitation to see the invisible architecture that runs your life on autopilot. This kind of seeing can feel profoundly unsettling in the beginning. It is the feeling of waking up inside a dream and recognizing it all as projection. It marks a quiet but permanent shift in your core identity. A move from being the character in the story to the awareness in which the story appears. You can never fully unsee this perspective. Now a space has opened between you and the machine of your mind. And that quiet space is the real beginning. This newfound awareness now opens up a different kind of inquiry. A chance to gently examine the source code of the reality your filter has been automatically building. The real work ahead begins with just one question. One that I invite you to hold, not for a quick answer, but for the inner space it creates. What is the one foundational belief about yourself you are now willing to see, not as an absolute truth, but simply as an old, familiar inherited story? Sharing your reflection below can be a powerful first step, a way of bringing an unconscious pattern into the light of a conscious, shared human awareness. Remember that the sudden impulse to fix yourself is part of the old mechanism. Your only task now is not one of effort, but of gentle, lucid attention. So let the real practice be one of simple, devoted noticing. Your first true mission is to just watch the filter in action as it goes about its day. When you catch an old story running, you have already succeeded. That moment of pure recognition is the entire practice in and of itself. Every single time. You do not need to change the thought or fight any feeling. Just notice that it is there and notice the silent awareness that is doing the noticing. This simple act is what dissolves the filter's power over time, not through a fight, but through the quiet and steady application of your conscious, neutral presence. This is the quiet beginning of a new relationship with your own mind. One founded not on conflict, but on spacious, compassionate, and clear-eyed observation. Be exceptionally patient with yourself as this new awareness integrates. It is a profound shift that will unfold in its own time at its own natural, easy pace. Thank you for trusting me and this process with your attention. It was a genuine honor to explore this deep and vital internal territory alongside you. I wish you clarity and a deep abiding peace on the path. The journey from this very moment, is now yours to walk into your life. Thank you for embarking on this journey with me. If this video resonated with you, I invite you to like and subscribe to our channel. Share this video with others so they can benefit from this message. And don't forget to leave a comment below sharing your thoughts, reflections, and experiences. Thanks again for watching and for joining me. Take care and see you soon.